The history of the Pension Board's United Church of Christ is a history of caring for those who serve the church. It is the history of a 100-year partnership, a covenant, to help clergy and lay workers achieve health and economic security yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Support of the church's servant leaders has been a part of the life of the church through the ages. The scriptures remind us of the church's covenant to help provide for those called to minister. But as the world has changed, meeting the financial needs of those called to serve has become a greater and greater challenge.
Back in the 1880s, this financial support was made for purposes that the clergy then had all kinds of needs, inadequate salaries, health needs, medical expenses, and obviously retirement income. And that's where the early part of the ministerial relief program played a role significantly, because the payments from ministerial relief were generally the only income that clergy had at that time, since Social Security was yet unheard of.
Over time, the number of retired clergy grew, placing an increasing strain on the support available through the Board for Ministerial Relief. The need for an organized and funded retirement plan was being recognized by other denominations as well. The Evangelical Synod Fund and Reformed Sustention Fund had recently begun the important work of providing retirement income for their clergy.
The local churches supported the pensions of their pastors, and they sent their funds to the pension office.
Meanwhile, on the congregational side, a resolution put forth by the Ohio Conference called upon the churches to build a pension system. This retirement income plan would be not a national grant of charity because of indigence, but a pension of honor because of faithful service. Members of the Congregational Board of Relief worked diligently with accountants and attorneys and with the nation's foremost church benefits experts to prepare for the next meeting of the National Council in October 1913. There, the church voted to establish the annuity fund for congregational ministers. The Reverend Dr. Frank Goodwin, speaking in support of the plan, said the spiritual life of the denomination can but be enriched by the services of such faithful disciples of Christ and the consciousness of having supplied their wants and added to their comforts in their last days. The annuity fund was incorporated on April 23, 1914. The first certificate of membership in the annuity fund was issued in May 1914 to the Reverend George McCullum of Chicago. 374 ministers applied for membership in the first 90 days.
The Board of Ministerial Relief continued to support clergy who had retired before the start of the annuity fund. Those payments continued for a number of years as a transition was made over to the annuity fund.
It quickly became apparent that a substantial retirement fund was needed if the covenant for pension payments was to be secure. The National Council of Congregational Churches, under the leadership of its secretary, the Reverend Hubert Herring, had started work on a national celebration to be held in 1920 in honor of the 300th anniversary of the Pilgrim's Landing. The people of the church committed to the task of raising $5 million as a Pilgrim Memorial Fund to undergird the annuity fund. Today, that would be worth $90 million. Soon, younger clergy began coming into the plan in their early years of ministry. The original plan design focused on persons who had already reached retirement age, a model that didn't work for a new generation. The annuity fund was enhanced to better serve clergy at all stages of ministry. The first certificate under the enhanced plan was issued in January 1921 to the Reverend Egbert Macklin, who served as pastor of Victoria Congregational Church in Jamaica, New York, until his retirement in 1953. In the late 1920s, a new challenge arose with the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression of the 1930s that followed. Yet throughout this difficult economic period, no retiree ever missed an annuity payment, and the value of members' pension accounts did not diminish. A congregational retirement plan for lay workers was established in 1931. The American Missionary Association, which grew out of the efforts of congregational abolitionists, enrolled all of its employees. When the Congregational and Evangelical and Reformed traditions came together in 1957 to form the United Church of Christ, the continuation of retirement plan coverage was carefully addressed.
Administration of the Evangelical and Reformed pension plans was extended to the pension boards in 1957 at the merger of the two denominations. But it wasn't until 1988 that the plans merged into one retirement fund, which is now our annuity fund.
Throughout its history, the pension boards, as steward of the resources entrusted to it, has been guided in its management of members' retirement accounts by its fiduciary duty and by the values it shares as a ministry of the United Church of Christ, always mindful that every single dollar in the plan has a member's name on it.
I have an early thought about that moment when I became part of the United Church of Christ, an ordained minister, and I was guided into a program that seemed to me miraculous in terms of what it promised. At some point in my life, I would finish my ministry that had barely begun, and I would have a benefit at that point of retirement that would take me beyond retirement into my later years, such years as I now have at the age of 89.
In order to supply the needs of the locality where we are, we started the ministry to reach out to the community. Then we also started preschool and after school to address the needs of welfare to work mothers and also working mothers. We started with very small. Now we are serving about 250 children right now. Next year we may serve about 400 to 500 children. We have also created 40 to 50 new jobs. We are very proud that we are participating in the pension plan of the United Church of Christ.
For pension boards, trustees, and staff, the stewardship of members' resources is a sacred trust.
Those assets are placed in trust. We have a fiduciary duty to look after the interests of our beneficiaries, those pastors and lay employees who participate in our programs.
Over the years, the pension boards has also worked collaboratively with other church benefits plans to protect members' interests. In 1974, Congress enacted a far-reaching set of pension and benefit laws, but the legislation was written with corporate employers in mind, with no recognition of the unique tax position of churches and church retirement plans. Representatives of 27 denominational benefits boards, including the pension boards, met with legislators and policymakers to address this concern.
The ERISA Act was passed by Congress, so we formed a committee which spent a good deal of time in Washington talking to congressmen and senators, ultimately ended up convincing them that it was not appropriate for that act to be applied to church pension boards. We were successful in that effort.
That advocacy to safeguard members' interests continues today through the pension board's participation in the Church Alliance and Church Benefits Association.
As we worked, we were able to effect a number of changes. Amongst the things that the Church Alliance was able to do was to retain the housing allowance for our ministers. But as we moved along and looked at various legislation, Congress was looking at pieces of legislation which would have affected our health plan. And we were able to work with Congress to assure that our health plans could remain distinctive.
Through the Church Alliance, which is comprised of the CEOs from church retirement plans, the pension boards continues to monitor legislative and regulatory actions that impact churches and clergy.
Today, the pension board celebrates its 100th year, carrying on the legacy and vision of the annuity fund. And today, the pension board's ministry to the church encompasses more than retirement benefits. In 1969, General Senate 7 adopted a resolution calling for the pension boards to administer the UCC's Ministers Group Health Insurance Program. The UCC medical plan now provides comprehensive coverage to active and retired UCC clergy and lay employees and their families, believing that healthy leaders lead healthy churches.
In the health plan, for example, family leave and pregnancy and birth, the coverage for those particular services is unusually excellent.
In recent years, due to collective efforts, the pension boards has been able to improve health plan benefits and control pharmacy and medical costs with annual savings of $15 million.
Subsequent General Senate resolutions have affirmed the importance of providing clergy and lay employees with comprehensive benefits and entrusted the administration of these programs to the pension boards. Through the Board for Ministerial Assistance, the pension boards partners with the church to administer the General Senate plan of supplementation of small annuities, as well as subsidizing health plan premiums, providing emergency assistance and Christmas gift checks for the lowest income retirees. And the pension boards keeps an eye on tomorrow and the church of the future by helping young clergy who have accepted the high calling to parish ministry in honing the skills needed to be transformational leaders.
I'm really pleased and proud of the Next Generation Leadership Program. When you're working with young adult clergy, part of what you want to do is help them begin strong so that they can have a long career.
For me, without a doubt, if it weren't for this program, I think by now I would have been so overwhelmed by the challenges that I would be considering leaving ministry, or I already would have.
The pension board's commitment to caring for those who serve the United Church of Christ is as strong today as it was 100 years ago, and will continue to be so as we move into the next 100 years of partnership.
As we lean into the next century of service, we are thankful for the staff and trustees who guided the pension boards through 2 world wars, a depression, and multiple recessions without ever missing a pension payment. We know that the future will be different, with new challenges and indeed new opportunities. We thank you for your continued confidence and trust in us.
The pension boards, your partners in ministry, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.